today I'm talking about American actress Natalie Wood, who died in 1981 at the age of 43. Natalie Wood was an American movie and television actress. She was born Natalie Zakharenko in San Francisco, California, on the 20th of July 1938, to Russian parents Nicholas and Maria Zakharenko, whose maiden name was Zudalova. Her parents called her Natasha even though they named her Natalie. Her maternal grandfather was a wealthy businessman who owned soap and candle factories. When the Russian Civil War started, the family fled Russia for China and lived in Harbin. Her mother married Russian-Armenian regimental officer Alexei Tatarlov in 1928. They had a daughter called Olga in 1928. They moved to America and divorced in 1936. Natalie's father was a carpenter. He was from a poor family. Her paternal grandfather was a chocolate factory worker and joined the anti-Bolshevik civil forces during the war. He was killed in a street fight between the Red Army and White Russian soldiers. Her paternal grandmother and her 3 sons fled to Shanghai. They then moved to Vancouver, Canada, and then to America. Natalie's parents met when Maria was still married to Alexei. He was working as a shipyard worker, and he introduced her to Nicholas, who was one of his co-workers. Nicholas changed his last name to Gerdin, as it was easier to pronounce. After she divorced Alexei, she married Nicholas in 1938. 5 months later, Natalie was born. In Gavin Lambert's biography of Natalie, he says there is a query about whether Nicholas was Natalie's father, or if it was George Zeppeloff, who worked as a second mate on a cruise ship and was apparently Maria's lover. Natalie's sister, Lana, was born in 1946. She shortened her name to Lana. She became an actress using the stage name Lana Wood. One of her memorable parts was in the James Bond film Diamonds Are Forever in 1971, where she played the role of Plenty O'Toole. In 1942, the family bought a house in Santa Rosa, California. During a film shoot for the movie Happy Land, Olga was taken on as an extra in a crowd scene. Maria took 5-year-old Natalie down to the filming location to be discovered. It worked and Natalie got a scene in the movie. Maria then became a pushy stage mother who was determined to make Natalie a star. Film executives David Lewis and William Gertz changed her last name to Wood as it was simpler and easier to pronounce, and as an honour to their friend, director and producer Sam Wood. Her first starring role was in Miracle on 34th Street in 1947, which made her into a child star. She became a teenage star when she was cast in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, and crossed over to adult roles when she was cast in hit movies such as West Side Story in 1961, Splendor in the Grass 1961, Gypsy in 1962, and Inside Daisy Clover in 1965. Natalie had a love affair with James Dean during the making of Rebel Without a Cause. Here they are in the movie. She dated Elvis Presley for a short time in 1956. When she was 19, she married actor Robert Wagner in 1957, who is well known for his role as Jonathan Hart in the TV series Heart to Heart. It didn't work out and they divorced in 1962. Another boyfriend was Warren Beatty. In 1969, she married British producer Richard Gregson. They had a daughter, Natasha, in 1970. They divorced in 1972. Robert and Natalie remarried in 1972, and their daughter Courtney was born in 1974. Natalie won a Golden Globe Award for Best New Star of the Year in 1957 for her role in Rebel Without a Cause. Best New Star? She'd been a child star. She also won a Golden Globe Henrietta Award for World Film Favourites in 1966 and a Golden Globe Award for Best Performance by an Actress in a Television Series in 1980 for her role in the televised From Here to Eternity. Here she is with Ruth Gordon with the Golden Globe Henrietta Award. Ruth Gordon won the Best Supporting Actress Award for her role in Inside Daisy Clover. On Friday the 27th of November 1981, Natalie, her husband Robert Wagner, and her co-star Christopher Walken from her latest film Brainstorm set sail in the couple's yacht, the Splendor. Also aboard was skipper Dennis Deverne. Here is Christopher. He had won an Oscar in the Actor in a Supporting Role category for The Deer Hunter in 1979. In the afternoon they arrived at Avalon on Santa Catalina Island. They went shopping and had drinks at El Galleon restaurant. That evening Natalie decided she wanted to spend the night ashore as the weather was bad and she didn't want to be aboard the yacht, and they had been arguing. She spent the night in a room at the Pavilion Lodge. Dennis accompanied her as a chaperone. According to Dennis, Natalie told him she wanted to leave Robert, as in ending their relationship, not just leave him that night. Natalie's sister Lana has also said Natalie wanted to divorce Robert. The next day, Saturday the 28th of November, Natalie returned to the yacht and they sailed to Ismouth Cove at Two Harbours on the island. That night they had dinner and drinks at Doug's Harbour Reef. Natalie apparently was laughing and flirting with Christopher, and Robert was jealous. All four of them were very intoxicated when they left the restaurant to return to the yacht at about 10 p.m. According to investigators, the restaurant manager called the harbour master, telling him to make sure they all got back to the yacht safely. Robert claimed he and Christopher had an argument back on the vessel about Christopher trying to encourage Natalie to devote more of her time working on films than spending time with Robert and her children. However, skipper Dennis Deverne claimed the argument was about Robert getting upset with Christopher with regard to Natalie. Natalie and Christopher had been talking and laughing together all night. Dennis claimed Robert smashed a bottle and shouted at Christopher, "Do you want to fuck my wife?" Christopher then went to his bedroom and Natalie went to bed. Dennis said that Robert went into the couple's bedroom and that he heard an argument, things being thrown about, and noises that sounded like there was a physical fight going on. He said he knocked on the door, but Robert told him to go away. He then went back to the bridge on the yacht. A short time later, Dennis saw Robert crying and saying that Natalie was missing. This was at around midnight. So Dennis searched the boat and then the dinghy was also missing. Dennis said that neither him nor Christopher untied the dinghy. There is the possibility that when Dennis was searching the boat, that someone untied the dinghy. There was a window of opportunity, but no one knows. Dennis said he suggested calling the Coast Guard, but Robert said no. He also suggested turning on the searchlight, but Robert said no. Instead, Robert opened a bottle of scotch. Then at 1:30 a.m, Robert made a ship-to-shore call to authorities saying that his wife was missing and to search the town. Then 2 hours after that, at 3:30 a.m, the Coast Guard was finally called. Why was there this delay? A boat found the yacht's missing dinghy in a cove roughly a mile from Splendor. Natalie wasn't in it, and the engine hadn't been turned on, and the oars hadn't been used. At 7:44 a.m, one of Robert's friends, Islander Doug Bombard, was searching for Natalie in his boat and saw a red object in the Pacific Ocean. It was discovered to be a down jacket and Natalie was underneath it. She was about 100 yards from the shore and she had drowned. According to people who saw Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken, they both were very upset and looked distraught. Christopher had assumed that Natalie had gone ashore again like she had done the previous night. Robert and Christopher left the area in a police helicopter. Robert left it up to Dennis to identify Natalie's body. Why would you ask someone else to identify your wife's body? All three men said they thought Natalie had left the boat on the dinghy despite the stormy weather and the late hour. Why wouldn't she have asked Dennis to take her to the island like she did the night before? Years later in the 48 Hours documentary, Dennis said that Natalie didn't know how to start the dinghy. Natalie's sister doesn't believe she would have done that. Natalie was afraid of water. In 1949, when she was a young child, she was shooting a scene in the film The Green Promise. She fell through a broken bridge when she was filming a storm scene and broke her left wrist and nearly drowned. There is an interview where she says she has always been, quote, terrified of dark water, sea water. So did she have a premonition of how she was going to pass? Apparently Natalie's mother was told by a gypsy that Natalie would die by drowning. The only time she was near water was when she was with Robert. When they married for the second time, their wedding ceremony was aboard a yacht off the coast of Catalina Island, where she drowned 9 years later. Her sister said she wouldn't have gone ashore wearing a nightgown and socks. Dennis said in the 48 Hours documentary that Robert made him move into his guest house in Beverly Hills, and he had to stay inside and not communicate with anyone in the immediate aftermath. In his 2008 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Robert admits that he did smash a wine bottle in the argument with Christopher. He originally told the police the bottle had broken because of rough seas. He also changed his story and came up with the banging dinghy theory that Natalie had got up to retie the dinghy because it was banging into the boat and making a noise and must have fallen into the water. Dennis disputes this and said the dinghy was securely tied and wasn't banging. The investigators believe that she would have called Dennis to do the job and not do it herself. Coroner to the Stars Thomas Noguchi performed the autopsy. He found bruises on her arms and legs that had the pattern of the aluminium frame of the dinghy. The conclusion was that the dinghy was banging into the side of the yacht. Natalie had tried to secure it tighter so that it didn't make a noise and had slipped and fallen into the water. She was wearing a nightdress and the red down jacket, which ties into the story of Natalie retiring to bed and then getting up to fix the dinghy and putting a jacket on as it was cold. Thomas stated that the bruising on Natalie's arms and legs were caused when she was trying to get into the dinghy, but because she was wearing the down jacket, it became saturated by the water and weighed her down, making it impossible for her to climb into it. 30 years later, in November 2011, the case was reopened. A witness on a nearby boat said he or she had seen and heard the argument and that it was a male and female on the back of the yacht, which matches what Dennis said. There was the argument and then silence, but he or she didn't hear a splash or someone going overboard. An investigator who was examining the case again said it is suspicious because Natalie had bruising on her arms and legs and marks on her left cheek, forehead and eyebrow, and she looked like a victim of domestic violence. After the case was reopened in 2011, the medical examiner's office changed the cause of death from accident to undetermined. In January 2013, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office stated that some of Natalie's bruises could have been caused before she entered the water, but there was no proof. Robert Wagner always denied having anything to do with his wife's death. The investigators can't prove it was an accident and equally can't prove it was a homicide. The movie Brainstorm, which was released in 1983, was able to be completed because Natalie had filmed her major scenes. The script was then rewritten and Natalie's sister Lana was used to complete the film. The film is dedicated to Natalie. Natalie was buried in Westwood Memorial Park, 1218 Glendon Avenue, Los Angeles, California. Her plot is in Section D, number 60. The inscription on her grave reads, "Beloved daughter, sister, wife, mother and friend, more than love." Beloved wife? So beloved that instead of calling the Coast Guard straight away, a bottle of scotch was opened. The previous photo was when I visited in 2000. These photos were taken in 2009. So what do you think happened? Leave your comments below. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.